Hello friends, in today's video I will be talking about Anglo-Norman period, which is also known as the Middle English period of English literature. This period starts with the Norman conquest in 1066 and this period continues up to 1350. The medieval period or the Anglo-Norman period, as we have already mentioned, it starts with the Norman conquest. The Norman people are actually the French people. So with the conquest of the French people over the Anglo-Saxon, French became the official language or the language of the rulers, and Anglo-Saxon was spoken only among the laymen or the common people of the then English land. Normans were not French actually. They settled in the northern part of France and adapted the French language and culture. They lived in the northern part, so that's why they were called Norman or Northern Man. And there were four dialects that developed during that period. First one was the Northern, second one is East Midland and West Midland, third one is South Eastern, and the fourth one is Southwestern. So far as the Northern dialect is concerned, it is subdivided into Lowland Scots and Northern English corresponding to the Old Northumbrian dialect. East Midland and West Midland dialects correspond to Mercian. Southeastern corresponds to Kentish and Southwestern corresponds to West Saxon. East Midland dialect, which was spoken in the capital city of London, became the standard English of today. Another important thing or important political event that happened during the Anglo-Norman age was Magna Carta was signed. Magna Carta was signed in the year 1215. To be exact, the date was 15th June. What was Magna Carta? Actually, there was a king called King John. He was very bad and cruel king during the 13th century. He murdered his relatives, implemented heavy tax on common people, and several barons rebelled against him. Then King John had no option but to sign Magna Carta or the Great Charter. In that document, it was promised that the church rights would be protected and the barons would be protected from illegal imprisonment, which used to happen before the sign of this Great Charter. The second important thing, so far as political outlook is concerned, is that 100 years war started in the year 1337 between England and France, and it ended in 1453. So it continued more than 100 years. That's why it is called 100 years war. What was the reason behind this 100 years war? Actually, there was a French king called Charles IV who died in 1328, and Edward III's mother was Isabella, who was the sister of the dead king Charles IV. Then Isabella makes Edward III the king of both France and England, and as Charles IV had no son, and that's why the people of France rebelled against England and Isabella and Edward III. That's how the war between England and France started. So that was a brief outline of the political scenes that were happening during the Anglo-Norman age. Now let's come to the poetry of Anglo-Norman age. If we talk about poetry of Anglo-Norman age, it is also dominated by poetry. Anglo-Norman literature was dominated by poetry, as we have already seen in the previous age, that is Anglo-Saxon age. And basically there were chronicles, there were alliterative poems, romances, and few lyrics also. So far as chronicles are concerned, we have one important writer, that is Layman. Layman's Brut was published in 1205, and it was a chronicle of 16,000 alliterative lines, and it talks about the history of Britain from the landing of Brutus to the death of Cadwallader, and its source is Roman de Brut of Wes. The second chronicler is Robert of Gloucester. He was a monk from Gloucester and he was known for his rhyming chronicle. That was the unique thing about his writings. His approach to history was lively and sincere, but not outstanding. His works are drawn largely on the works of Geoffrey of Monmouth. The third chronicler was Robert Manning of Brune. The story of England was written in Alexandrine couplet. As he himself tells us, it was written between 3 and 4 o'clock on the afternoon of Friday, May 25, 1338. So within one day he wrote the whole history of England in his book, The Story of England. And his second book was Handling Scene, and it was a 4 stress lines in couplets. It is written in that format, and it was impartial in attitude unlike the others, and it was based upon Manuel Dee's passage of William of Waddington. Then so far as religious or didactic poetry of Anglo-Norman age is concerned, we have a poem called Ormulum. It was written by Orm, and it is an interpretation of the Bible. Different themes of the Bible were written in easy language so that the common people can have an access to the Bible and the stories of the Bible. And the poetic meter was first used in this poem. It was not used before. Poetic meter was not used before. It is an epic poem. This poem Ormulum is an epic poem of 10,000 lines, and it is written in Northeast Midland dialect and based on the Latin septenarius with 15 syllables. And it is a the work is somewhat monotonous, and monotony of the work is described as he is a merciless counter. As we have seen, he used to write in so many syllables at one line, so that's why a comment is about the poem is that he is a merciless counter. And the next poem is The Owl and the Nightingale. It was written by somebody whose name is not known, so it is an anonymous poem, and it is a debate between an owl standing for wisdom and sobriety and a nightingale representing the lighter joys of life. And the next poem is Cursor Mundi. That is also a religious or didactic poem, and it was a religious work of encyclopedic nature, and it treats almost all the Old and New Testament series. And the next poem is Prick of Conscience by Richard Rolle of Hampole. So far as the alliterative poems of this age is concerned, we have Pearl, Purity, Patience, and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Pearl's authorship is also unknown. It is an anonymous poem. It is written in allegorical mode. It is a vision in which the poet seeks his precious pearl, which he lets slip into the grass. The second poem, Purity, is also anonymous poem. It is more didactic in nature, and similar quality is there in Patience also. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, again an anonymous poem. It is best among all these poems, and all Middle English romances also, because there is a mastery in the plot construction, realism and characterization is better in comparison to the other poems, and the descriptive power and alliterative lines makes it distinguished from the other poems. Now we come to the romances. What is a romance? Romance describes the love of knights for their country and its protection, and it also includes amorous loves also. Prevailing subject is of a martial and amatory nature. Additional interest of the supernatural feature is also there, and frequent glimpses of the habits of the time is included in romances. There are several types of romances. One is historical romance, another romance is related to the King Arthur, another is based on classical themes, and some romances were based on miscellaneous themes such as love story and others. So far as historical romances are concerned, we have examples such as King Horn, Havelock and Dane, Guy of Warwick, and Bevis of Hampton. And there are romances which are based on King Arthur. They are Arthur and Merlin, Wayne and Gawain, and Morte d'Arthur. This group is called Matter of Britain. Then the romances based on classical themes are King Alexander, the destruction of Troy. And the romances, there are romances which were based on Charlemagne legends also. Examples such as Roch Collier, Sir Ferinbras, and this group is also comes. This group also come under the Matter of Britain. So far as miscellaneous themes are concerned, we have Amis and Amilion. It is a touching love story. So the theme of this romance is love, of course. Then William of Palern. It is there. The missing theme is there, and Flourish of Blochefleur. Here the love of king's son for a captive maid. It is the story of this romance. And if we come to the lyrics of Anglo-Norman age, it is although very little pieces are available from Anglo-Norman age, we have one good example which is called Cuckoo Song. This is one of the good examples of lyric poems of Anglo-Norman age. And to a modern reader, this form of literature carries greatest appeal because the lyric is still retained during our contemporary situation. It is of course influenced by French and Latin and mostly religious in theme and tone. And if we talk about the lyrics of Anglo-Norman age. There are examples of prose also in the Anglo-Norman age. I haven't included them in this PPT. Sorry for that. I will just explain what are the proses, important prose works of Anglo-Norman age. In Anglo-Norman age, prose was basically used for official purposes, right? Like writing letters from one person to another person. But so far as literature is concerned, we have one great example that is called Encrin Ruel. It was written for three noble ladies who had become anchoresses. It is a kind of guideline for those ladies in the life they had chosen. So again we can see a controlling hand or a patriarchal control is to be seen in this work called Encrin Ruel, a kind of moderation in everything, but broad humanity is also there and homely elements can be found in this work Encrin Ruel. Another example is Einbeit of Inuit. It was written by Dan Michael of Northgate in 1340 and it is a translation of a French work. It is written in southeastern or Kentish dialect. So far we have seen the political background of Anglo-Saxon Anglo-Norman age, which starts with the Norman conquest in 1066 and continues up to 1350, and we have seen the poetic works and a couple of prose works in this age. Thank you.